Hey guys, welcome back to the Elevate HD podcast. I'm your host, Holly Davidge, as always, and today we are joined by the wonderful Sophie Jenkins. So Sophie is an IFBB Figure Pro. She's also an online physique coach and a posing coach, also one of my good friends. So Sophie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you on for a while now. We finally have our stars aligned so we can collaborate and organize. So the reason why I wanted to get Sophie on today, we were kind of talking a bit about this before the podcast started, is I really admire and like people that do things their own way without kind of having influence of the external world or like social pressures or Instagram pressures telling them to do a certain thing. Like you guys all know well by now that I'm not the chicken and broccoli kind of gal that just cries into her Tupperware for every meal. Like I do enjoy the flexibility and being adaptable on prep and off prep. And Sophie is quite similar to me in that respect. And I thought it would be interesting to get her on because she obviously is an IFBB Figure Pro, so like an elite level physique, but still manages to maintain some sort of balance in her life. So that is kind of the main reason I wanted to talk to you. But do you want to tell us a little bit about what got you into bodybuilding and competing in the first place?
Yeah, so like most people, I think I kind of fell into it a little bit accidentally. So growing up, I was always super sporty. I did competitive athletics, track and field, a lot throughout my kind of teenage years. 100 meters and hurdles. That was like my main kind of sport growing up. And then when I kind of got to the age of about probably 16, 17, I just kind of stopped doing it. I just got distracted by partying, boys, you know.
Of course.
So didn't really do any sort of exercise, to be honest, for probably about 4 or 5 years. And then the start of one year, I just thought, you know what, I want to get in a bit better shape. Like I was starting to kind of always been very kind of skinny naturally. And I could see that starting to change a little bit as I kind of got into my 20s. And I was like, not 100% happy with how I looked. So I thought, I'm going to get back into athletics. Always loved that. And that'll be a good way to do some exercise. So I joined my local city athletics club and then thought I could just rock up and be just as good as I was. That didn't happen like that at all. So the coach there was like, look, you need to go to the gym for a couple of months, build a bit of fitness up, then come back. So I joined my local gym, had like a kind of like induction there with one of the PTs, showed me how to like lift weights. And when I went back to an athletics club, I was just like absolutely obsessed. And then I discovered kind of like the 90s era female bodybuilders, and I've just been like obsessed with that kind of like aesthetic ever since. Did my first show in 2016, first season, then 2 shows, took 2.5 years off because I was tiny, came back again in 2019, did 4 shows, took another 2 years off and did 2 shows in 2021, which is when I turned pro.
Nice. That's a very quick summary. I'm very impressed with how much you managed to squeeze into that.
Well, honestly, like it's crazy to me. Like every year that passes, I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing this, it's like 7 years now.
Yeah.
Like I've been training 8 years. What? Like that's crazy to me. Like I can't believe how quickly it's gone. It's mental.
I find it so mad that like to me I still feel like quite a new competitor, but then when I look around, like I'm pretty much the only person I know that's still competing since 2018. So like the new generations are coming in and all of a sudden I'm not new anymore and I'm not like the young bloods, which is mad.
That's a good point actually. When I think about the girls that I was competing with, like in NABA, like in my first season, like they're not anywhere to be seen in the industry anymore. Really, like it's crazy how things change.
Yeah, and so like in your first preps, like were they kind of very bro in their approach, very strict, or how were they?
Yeah, so like my first prep was like the like most old school prep ever. So like it was 2016. I think like online coaching had just started to be a bit of a thing, but it certainly wasn't something that was like a given. So I was training at this like old school gym in York at the time, and the guy whose family owned that, he competed like, you know, when he was younger. So he prepped me for free. I just used to check in with him in person on a Friday night at the gym. And he'd tell me basically to eat less sweet potato and take my clen. That was basically it. So yeah, that was very much like chicken, sweet potato, cardio, and then I had a full cheat day every
Ooh,
week.
a cheat day.
I
Living the
know,
life.
like a cheat day, but obviously in hindsight, like terrible idea. Like I rebounded so bad after that
What would a
show.
cheat day entail then? Did you have a normal habit or routine for it?
Absolutely not. No, I was like completely feral. Like if I woke up for a wee at like 4 in the morning, I'd just like start eating
You'd like
Oreos.
wait till midnight struck and then you'd start.
Like if I woke up at night, it's like, right, let's go downstairs and start eating. Yeah, like I used to eat so much crap. And then it changed to like a cheap meal, like a little bit nearer the show. And I think the last weekend before the show, I didn't have one. But yeah, that was pretty much how it was the whole prep. And then because of that, like I did struggle quite a lot, like post show, like I just couldn't stop eating post show like, at all, put on so much weight. And for someone who's been like naturally skinny their whole life, it was like my body was just like someone else's. It was like responding so differently. Like I gained so much weight so quick. Um, all it took, the next year was just, literally like a 6 week diet, and I was kind of back to how I was before. But I did rebound like proper bad, and ever since then, I've never liked to include those sorts of kind of like meals off in like a prep kind of phase, really, especially like near the show.
Yeah. And when you were obviously coming out of your first prep and you were very, very lean and you did overeat and you gained a lot of body fat, like how did that affect you from like a mindset perspective?
You know what? At the time, I don't think I really cared that much. Like I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like, oops. I look terrible. But at the time, I think I was just kind of, because I'm quite tall, like I always carried weight gain okay. And the relationship I was in at the time, like he was very much into eating a lot of like dirty kind of foods and stuff. So we were just kind of like fat and happy basically.
Goals.
Yeah, but I have to say, like when I've done preps, obviously after that, when Dan Welburn prepped me in 2019, we obviously didn't have any cheat meals then. Like I found that I did find that better, much better coming out of the show, and just generally like the actual prep, like I actually had less cravings. When that first prep, I would just all week I would just be counting down to pizza.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't have it, I think once you get through those kind of first 3 or 4 weeks, you just appreciate and enjoy the food you do get. So you kind
Yeah.
of lose that like big craving. Yeah, like I definitely wouldn't ever prep like that again.
Yeah, because in my first prep in 2018, I was allowed a cheat meal. So it wasn't a cheat day, but I still would like plan my whole week around it. Like
Oh yeah,
I was living in Cambridge at the time, and I would literally travel into London to go to this pizza porn or burger porn place that I'd seen on Instagram and literally revolve my whole week around planning for it, looking at the menu, researching ahead of time, knowing
absolutely.
exactly what I was going to have, get loaded fries, massive burger, milkshake, like all the stops. Because this was like, had to be the perfect situation because I only got the chance once a week.
Yeah. And it's well, I'm sure you probably had like a similar experience. Like it's really not good out the other side.
No. Yeah, it is. It's difficult as well because it just gives you this mentality of like clean versus dirty foods. Like
Yes.
it was like such a contrast as well because in my first prep, I was on a strict meal plan that was like only single ingredient foods. I didn't have any dairy. I didn't even have any whey protein. I didn't have anything like that. It was just purely simple foods. So to go from that to then have the cheat meal once a week, it was like really confusing because most of the time I wasn't like everything was off limits. But then this one time a week, you had this one opportunity to get everything in that you couldn't have for the whole week. I wasn't
Yeah.
even allowed to have sweetener. So I wasn't drinking Diet Coke or Monsters or coffee with sweetener, like nothing.
Do you
So
find it really upset your stomach then on your
probably, probably.
I
Probably just
remember
ignored it.
I remember a few times, like when I used to have those cheat days, like on that prep, like I remember this one time, like we'd gone out for like a chicken burger at some like American place and being sat outside, it was summer, and like middle of the meal, all of a sudden, like stabbing stomach cramps, like it was so bad. Like to go from, like you say, because I was quite similar, really, like the food sources, that
Yeah.
prep day to day were literally like chicken, sweet potato, oats, banana. I had no dietary fats.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously like one day a week, I was just getting in like a month's worth of dietary
I
fats.
know. Yeah.
My stomach was like, mate,
Just
what's
sitting
going
in
on?
your gut, like.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And then it does kind of create that negative relationship with food in a way, because there are all these certain rules which I find both rigid but also a bit arbitrary, because you're telling someone that these foods are good on these days and bad on these days. So it's like, especially when you're a new competitor, it's a bit confusing.
So yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, definitely not. It's I've never ever had any food issues whatsoever. So prior to bodybuilding, I was just kind of like a normal person. I've always been naturally quite skinny, so I've never had to really think about food.
Mhm.
So therefore, I've never developed any kind of bad habits or kind of like just like body relationship, like food relationship, anything was just like never had any issues. And post show, like I said, that first show, I was like, wow, like what is going on? Because I've never experienced that, like that feeling of not being able to stop eating and all that sort of stuff. Like it was just completely crazy to me. And I always kind of use that as like a warning to like any clients I take on, because it's like, look, if someone like me who's never had any food relationship problems ever can have food relationship problems after, you know, their first show, then it just goes to show, like, if you have had issues before, you're going to be tested to your max on a bodybuilding prep,
Mhm.
regardless obviously of like that prep just being stupid with the meals off and stuff. But you know, even like even my last prep, just that level of hunger itself, especially out the other side post show, it's enough to really put you to the test, even if you've never had, you know, food
Mhm.
relationship problems before. And that's why I was very, very cautious of taking on girls who have come from any sort of background of any sort of eating disorder. It's making sure like everything is in line for a solid amount of time before we like go into a prep
Mhm.
phase, because I don't want anyone to have to go through that, because it's shit. It's really
Yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? Like when you're a coach who also cares a lot about your clients, there's a bit of give and take in that, like you care so much about them as a human, but you also care so much about them getting the results they want. So sometimes you have to switch off your brain and say, okay, if I was being just purely supportive from like a mental well-being perspective, I probably wouldn't
yeah.
push them to this. But because I'm their coach and that's the service that they want me to perform, I have to shut off that emotional side of my brain and tell
It's
them to do something that is going to test them.
it's such a difficult balance. Like I always say this to my clients, like especially ones who I've got to really, really push. It's like, look, like I don't want you to be doing this much cardio. Like I fucking hate it.
Mm.
I hate having to put that in someone's program, because I wouldn't want to be doing that much cardio.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have, and like I've got better at it. I think like I have in times past been a little bit too kind of soft with people. But these days, I'm much more like, no, this is fucking bodybuilding at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This is what you signed up for. This isn't healthy. This is not an easy thing to do. If you don't want to be in shape, then
Yeah.
yeah, don't do it. But I think that gets missed a lot more so kind of in the last kind of recent years as well. It's like it's not meant to be fucking easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be hard. And if you don't have, it's okay if you don't have the mindset for it. If you've got food relationship issues, if you've got bad body relationship issues, that's okay. But maybe just don't bodybuild or don't do it
Yeah.
yet. Just wait.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's really easy to go on Instagram and look at all these people competing and think that's what I should be doing. Like once you get into training for a while or you become more serious about physique development goals, you think it's like the natural next step when
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the next step. It's just a subset of people go into it. It's not something you have to follow through with. And as you said, if you have body image issues, if you have relationship with food problems, you're not in a good place mentally, then it is probably one of the worst things you can do. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a physique development goal and wanting to improve yourself without stepping on stage. Like it's arguably much healthier, much more enjoyable, much more rewarding, because you're not being told by a set of judges every week, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. You're just looking good on the beach. You're doing photo shoots where you look amazing. You feel good in your clothes. Like it's literally a win-win no matter what.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you said, it's definitely not for everyone.
No, and I think like one thing that I'm very conscious of, especially with like my first timer girls or my kind of younger female clients, is when we're even like way off the show, I start talking to them about the post-show period, because I think it's very easy, especially in your first show, because I certainly did this, is to become, and you'll know exactly this feeling, you become so hyper fixated on that day or those days that are coming up to the show that you forget that there's actually a life after that. And you know, my body is going to change back, and when you've not experienced that ever before, that post-show period where your body changes, you know, back, you know, you gain body fat back, and you've got free reign with food and things, essentially, it's, if you haven't mentally prepared yourself for that and just literally focus on that show, it's just a recipe for fucking disaster, especially if there's already, even if it's years ago, you know, even if there's issues in the past with food or body relationship or whatever, like it's, I try to just start talking about it during the prep, so that we don't get to post show and being like, right, this is going to be really tough now. Okay, it's like, no, we've already spoke about it in detail and got a plan in place for how we're going to cope, you know, mentally with this period. And I think that's a good thing about, not that, you know, there are, you know, some men that are supportive in those sorts of things, but I think having a female as a coach is something I do think is very beneficial to like first time athletes, because like, unless you are a woman, you can't really understand the weight gain like a woman can, because, you know, men are like, oh yeah, we gain weight too, per show. It's like, okay, yes, but society hasn't made you feel your entire life that that's a terrible thing. It's a completely different experience for, I feel, for a woman to go through. And it's just, I just try to mentally prepare my clients for that with as much time beforehand as possible, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, actually, because I did a video on the Physique Collective with Brad Weimark on this. When I came out of my most recent season, I really struggled mentally post-show, and it wasn't like a rebound. I actually like didn't gain enough weight. I woke up like, I finished competing mid-October, and I woke up Christmas Eve and I was like a kilo above stage weight still. So I was just really resistant to gaining the weight, and I really struggled with the concept of gaining. And I spoke to him about it because, as you said, men gain weight too, of course, but for them, it's almost like a very positive thing. And they'll, you know, meet each other at a show or an event. They're like, oh, you look jacked. You look wham. Look how big you are. And it's all really positive. Whereas with females, it's like, oh, look how lean you are. Look how shredded you are. And that is the positive connotation. So it's not the fact that gaining weight is bad in and of itself. It's how we interpret it and how society deems it to be for us.
You know, that's like one of the reasons, other than it just being funny, that I changed my Instagram handle to
Big Soph,
because it's like, a lot of people, especially men, they don't like, they find it kind of odd that like a woman would be okay with like being referred to as that, like, and like, to me, like it's a joke name. Like, I don't actually think I'm really big.
Well, you are. You're much bigger than me.
Obviously, I'm like nearly 6 foot, so like that kind of goes in line with it a little bit more. But I just find, I just like to do things that kind of like make people like question things a little bit. Same with like the amount I like post about like my chest and my pecs and stuff, because like it makes the sorts of people I don't want to be friends with uncomfortable. So like, you're offended by that, all right, cool.
Like filtering out the people that you don't want to follow you anyway.
Follow, bye.
No, I do like, I think there should be like a positive spin on the fact that women want to take up space and be bigger and gain muscle, and it shouldn't be a negative thing, especially post show, when like it's literally for your health restoration, so it's not a bad thing.
That's how the Big Soph nickname started, like 4 years ago. Was like, when I was post show, it was like, I think it was my ex that came up with it. It was just like the return of Big Soph. I'm like, yeah, because I've always liked that. I've always enjoyed off seasons. I've always liked feeling powerful, because I've always kind of internally felt like that, kind of growing up with my personality and stuff. And when I discovered bodybuilding, I was like, oh, like now I can like actually show that in like a kind of like physical way as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's really kind of, I felt like it really suited me as a person, that kind of look as well. But I've always liked being like big in off season. I mean, obviously there's days where you're like, oh, you know, it goes to areas you don't want it to go to, and you sat in your car and you're like, oh, what the fuck is all this? Like, on my stomach. But like, generally speaking, I've always mentally like enjoyed off seasons like quite a lot, to be fair. And I
Yeah,
love eating.
so how do you approach your off season then? Because that's something I wanted to talk to you about, because you're not as strict and rigid as some people are. Because I've heard people say you're always on prep, whether you're off season or whether you're getting ready for a show, you're always on prep. Whereas like that mentality to me is just a recipe for burnout, because
Yeah.
you're always having to be switched on. So how do you approach it in terms of what are your non-negotiables, but what are you more flexible with, and what do you care about and not care about, kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess I've never really thought about it like that myself, but now I think about it, there obviously are things that I do regardless. So I would say like training is always there. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm definitely not one of these people who's like, you know, if I have to take a rest day because I'm really busy in off season, well, I have to take a rest day, you know. But generally speaking, over the years, I have been as consistent as I can be with my training, obviously around quite a lot of injuries and things, but I've always aimed to be as consistent as I can be with that. And then how I kind of am in the off season is like I have always been a meal plan person, purely from just the laziness in me. Like I just find it like so much easier to food shop and plan my day if I know exactly what I'm eating. And then if I get bored of a certain meal, I'll just change it. So I do have like a set meal plan in off season. I might just change bits around. But then if I want anything else, I'll just have it. If I'm hungry, obviously it eventually gets to a point where like my day-to-day food is satisfying me. I do it less and less. But I'm even in off season when my food's really high and I'm struggling maybe with appetite, I will like make myself have a meal off. I'll just fast on like Saturday just so I can have a meal off because I like food. And it's like, yeah, I enjoy a meal out. I enjoy takeaway. I enjoy ice cream, and yeah, I'll just make myself hungry if I need to in off season so that I can enjoy it. Really, I think as long as you're eating in calorie surplus across the course of the months, weeks, whatever, you're training hard in the gym. You're obviously getting enough rest. That's something I've never struggled with because I like chilling. Um, then yeah, I just stop. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you know, I've made the most amount of progress I could have made over the time I've been competing, because I think there is a lot of things I could have probably done that would have, you know, over the years made me like progress more. But would I still be doing it now? I don't think I'm the sort of person who would. There's people out there who can just be on it, all the time, and they just absolutely thrive off that complete like consistency. But I'm not one of those people, and I think if I did do that or tried to do that, then yeah, I wouldn't have lasted as long. 100%.
Yeah, that's what I kind of feel, because obviously I've done 3 preps now and my preps are quite rigid. Like, especially my most recent one with Joe, like I didn't really follow a meal plan, but I did kind of set my own one with my macros. I didn't have a single, not one refeed, not one cheat meal. Literally everything was on point. And the reason why I can get through that and do that is because I don't fatigue myself in that respect in an off season. Like I do literally most of the time stick to my macros and have similar meals, but I'm happy to be flexible. I'm happy to save some calories to get a milky coffee or have an off-plan meal with my family, or go away on holiday and intuitively eat for 3 days, which I did a couple of weeks ago. And it's no bother. Like I don't come back weighing way less or weighing way more. I'm relatively the same. So being able to have that flexibility has allowed me to go all in on my preps. And
I'm exactly the same. I'm exactly the same. Like I do not fuck about on prep. Like once I'm on prep, I'm on prep. You know, food wise, obviously I'm the same. Like I get set macros, but I write my meal plan from that. And yeah, I like it to be like that on prep. Like you say, once you've had that downtime in your off season, you're not looking. You can make that kind of switch, and you're not looking back thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd had that." It's like, well, I'll just have it in my off season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's literally it, because I know people on prep who can't even be around anyone eating out or at a restaurant, or if they're eating an off-plan meal in front of them, they cannot be around it. Whereas I actually don't mind it, because that person's sitting there eating it, enjoying it. And I'm like, well, I've chosen not to have it right now. And I'm happy to have it in my off seasons. And I did enjoy it a lot in my off seasons. So I'm okay with not doing it right now because it's not conducive to my goal at the moment. Whereas other people, because they're always in the state of rigidity 24/7, off season, on season, whatever, they just feel deprived all the time. So they can't cope when someone has something that they can't have in front of them.
And I think there's a lot of pressure just from kind of like, you know, like say social media, like these super high level athletes posting about being on it all the time. People think that that's what they have to do, and people like these people even say that like this is what you have to do to get to this level, sort of thing. And it's like, well, that's not fucking true. Like
Yeah.
it's not true. Like, do you know the biggest thing that I think really doesn't get talked about enough on socials and stuff is genetics.
Yeah.
It really pisses me off actually, because it's like at the end of the day, you know, you can be 100 million% consistent for years and years and years and years. If you haven't got the genetics to be a good bodybuilder, a top level bodybuilder, well, you're just not good at it.
Yeah.
People don't
Exactly.
want to say that to people. They don't want to say it to their clients, you know, but it is a very strongly, obviously, genetically influenced sport. And it only takes, you know, looking at the kind of, you know, the guys who've, you know, won Olympia several times and stuff, and looking at what they do and how they train, all this, you think, all right, yeah, it really is just.
Well, that's what I say all the time. People are like, you must train to the death, to absolute failure. And then you see the top level Olympians, they do not train to failure. They do fluff work a lot of the time. They literally go in, get a pump, shove weights around, then leave. Like none of them push to like muscular true failure.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's, you know, people are always kind of looking out there for that kind of like magic answer and all this sort of stuff. But it's, you know, you can obviously only do your best with what you've been genetically blessed with, balanced with what you're willing to put into that. Do you know what I mean? And like I've always been very kind of accepting of that. Like I know, like I said to you then, that like there is plenty of things I could have done and could probably be doing now, that would, you know, arguably equate over the years to more progress, but I don't want to do them. So I have to accept that, you know, the results and progress that I get is going to be a reflection of my effort levels combined with my genetics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially when you're a young either athlete or competitor and you don't really pay attention to longevity, you just kind of do what you're being told to right now without thinking about the repercussions of what's going to happen like 3, 4, 5 years down the line when you've been exhausting yourself daily with all these decisions, with all this hard work, all these unnecessary sacrifices you've had to make. You're just thinking of well, my coach told me to do this right now and he knows best, so I'm going to do that, instead of kind of thinking, okay, what are the consequences of this for my mental health and for my overall longevity in the sport?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm very much a strong believer of this in terms of like, you know, you have to take some responsibility for yourself as an athlete. And like I said, it's harder kind of when you're younger or new to it and things. But yeah, not only with like food and training all that stuff, but like obviously when it comes to assistance, especially as a female, you've got to you have to take responsibility. Like at the end of the day, you say like, oh, so and so, you know, coach, well, they had me on this and that. Okay, well, you agreed to take it.
Yeah.
Like, you do your own research, man. Like it's quite an important thing, you know, to be putting in your body. Like, you can't just blame the person that told you to take, you know,
Yeah.
X amount of stuff. It's like that's a very personal thing, and a level of responsibility that falls on you.
Mm-hmm.
To make, you know, informed decisions, basically.
Yeah, because we all know that coaches are not doctors, and we are all well aware that the only people that can prescribe us medicine are doctors. So when you go into a coaching relationship, you are aware of the fact that this person isn't a clinician; they are not qualified to do that. So that's your own. You know that, like everyone knows that.
Yeah, massively. I think that's, you know, it's very easily done in this industry, the blame game. But that's something I'm very kind of like, you know, especially if you're in the industry and you know about female PED use and stuff, like you can't, yeah, you've got to own your shit. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be responsible for what you're doing to yourself, essentially.
Yeah, it's even other things when people say like, oh, this coach ruined my relationship with food, or this person gave me an eating disorder. And look, like these things aren't going to happen unless there's an underlying thing there in the first place and something's going to trigger it. But as you said, like no one goes into bodybuilding thinking that it's a healthy sport, that it's good for your mental health or physical health, or that you're going to leave feeling, you know, better off hormonally, functionally. Like it is a big sacrifice, and you should only do it if you are passionate about it and if to you it's a vocation, because other than that, it's just not worth the restriction and the sacrifice.
Yeah, there's so much pressure, I think, and this is something me and Ella spoke about in our podcast. Like, there's so much pressure on coaches these days to just kind of be all singing, all dancing. And we've got to be a therapist, a friend, a coach, a PED expert, a nutritionist. And it's like, hang on a second, like, just let us, like,
Yeah.
can't be everything to everyone all the time.
No.
And at the end of the day, is something I'm getting a little bit kind of stricter about as well with clients. Like, we have to have a life and like put our foot down about things. Like, if I can't help a client with something, well, just refer to someone who's got, who it's their actual job.
Yeah.
I'm here to get you ready for a bodybuilding show, not fix your entire life,
Yeah.
basically.
I think people are afraid to refer out in a way because I think there's a lot of competition in terms of coaches at the moment who are looking for clients, and they want to be the one that says, I'm a one-stop shop. I can be your friend, your therapist. I'll come to all your shows. I'll sort all your gut issues, your hormonal health, everything like that. But at the end of the day, like, as I said, most of them are not doctors. Most of them are not therapists or psychotherapists or anything like that.
I mean, everything at the end of the day, and there are so many different factors, obviously, that come into a bodybuilding prep, mentally, physically, all this sort of stuff, that like you can't be the oracle of it all at the end of the day. And I think it actually says a lot about you as a coach if you can refer out to other people.
I respect people who do that, who know their limits and they know what their remit is and they don't go beyond that, because to me that is malpractice if you do start to try and do something that you don't have a knowledge of.
That's unprofessional. Yeah. Of course,
like, it's negligence of the client. If you could refer them out to a specialist or you take it on yourself, you're by definition neglecting that client's needs because they could have been getting it from somewhere where they actually knew where they were talking about.
100%. And at the end of the day, that's what the higher level coaches will do. They'll just, they're not going to be there to hold your hand mentally throughout the process. They're there to get you ready for your show, job done. Whereas like I feel like a more kind of like mid-tier coaches, like myself, for example, like it's very easy to feel pressured into being there mentally for your clients and knowing all what's going on in their personal life and all this sort of stuff, when actually the people charging twice as much aren't bothering with any of that shit.
But you know what's funny? Like, I've always had, well, not always, but most of my coaches have been male recently. And I think it's because I don't want to have to talk about all the emotional shit, because I don't want that to influence their decision of what they do with me. So I don't want to say, oh, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed, this, that, and the other, and for that to change what they do, because their job for me is to get me my best physique possible. And I don't care if my emotions like are influenced or anything. I don't want that to come into play. Whereas I think for a female coach, as we said before, you do toe the line a little bit, because we do care a lot. We do provide a lot of support and guidance. And while some clients kind of need that, also at the same time, as we said, we want to make sure it doesn't cloud our view of what the physique outcome should be and how to get there,
Yeah. And also just that client coach relationship as well. When it comes to, having downtime on a weekend and stuff, like I've been, really kind of terrible with that in the past, like not following my own contact times because, someone messaged me out of hours and they'll need me for something that's probably not even to do with my job, and you just like, you get better at it, I think, but it's difficult. And like you say, I think as a female, like having a female coach has huge benefits, I do think, but being a female coach is that it's hard. It is hard.
I definitely think if you are someone going for a photo shoot or a wedding or an event or a holiday, like you need a female coach. Absolutely. If you're a lifestyle client, like trying to get, and I'm not generalizing here, but I kind of am generalizing with males, like they're not going to have the same amount of emotional availability to you as a female would, and the female is going to be more supportive.
Yeah, and like this is the thing, it's not about being sexist or anything. At the end of the day, it's a case of like, you don't know what it's like to be a woman unless you are a woman. Just like that, like we were saying about the weight gain thing post show. It's you can't understand those things unless you are female.
Even like empathizing with the client, like say from my perspective. So when I was younger, I grew up quite overweight. I was kind of the opposite of you. I started doing diets when I was like 12. I did Weight Watchers when I was 15 years old. I did Slimming World. I did all that stuff. So if a client who wants to drop body weight and look good for a holiday or photo shoot, whatever, comes to me and tells me I literally can't go into the changing room without crying. Like, I literally know exactly how that feels because I've been there. So having that empathy and knowing where they've come from and being able to put yourself in those shoes really helps as well, because I know how that feels.
Yeah, and there are certain, I can think of a few off the top of my head, like male coaches who I would trust with that sort of stuff as well. But generally speaking, like you say, I think, unless you have been, or had not have been, unless you are a woman, like it's very hard to imagine it entirely or understand it entirely, I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you find now, like, coaching your clients? As you said, you've kind of had to form a barrier where you have that support and care, but you still draw the line when work needs to be done. Like, how do you manage that, especially if someone is like at the tail end of a diet and they're feeling quite tired and emotional anyway? Is it hard to kind of balance that out?
Yeah, I think like what I think is one of the worst things you can do as a coach if you're not happy with, say someone is, you feel like communicating too much with you, or they're telling you stuff that isn't really like it's nothing to do with your job as getting them ready, to do with getting them ready for the show or whatever. I think one of the worst things you can do, which I've done in the past, is kind of like pander to it and actually recognize it and stuff. So these days, if someone is, sharing too much stuff, then in their feedback, I almost kind of just don't ignore it, but I just kind of brush past it, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like it's not for me to help with at the end of the day. And it's like I said, it's not because I don't care, it's just actually I found that works better for one, getting results, and two, keeping a good kind of client coach relationship.
Yeah.
And then just been, I've just been a little bit stricter with like my contact hours and things recently. It's still a work in progress, trust me.
Yeah, it does take time. Like, working for yourself is just hard because you could work all hours of the day if you wanted to, and obviously it's your own business, so you're going to be much more self-invested than you were if you worked for a company that where you just got a salary. So of course you're going to try and nurture it and go overboard.
Yeah, and I think as well, like I was saying this, I was speaking to someone else about this the other day. Like, it's just because I care, like, about being a good coach. Like, that's where it all comes from. All these problems of, me replying to clients out of hours and clients speak to me about hours. It's happened because I care too much. I care
Yeah.
too much, obviously, about my clients, but also about my reputation as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would hate to have, anything negative said about me, or that I was, not responding quickly, or all that sort of stuff. So you kind of, I think, especially in the early stages of your business, like you do almost become a little bit paranoid about that sort of stuff. So you're like, oh, I've got to reply straight away.
Yeah.
So I'm there for them whenever they need anything whatsoever. And it's literally just, it comes from a good place. It's just because you can. You don't want to be one of those shitty coaches that never gets back to their clients or take days to reply.
I know.
I've had girls come to me for that reason with other coaches. I didn't get my feedback for 3 days, or people just being entirely ghosted by their coaches. Like, it's crazy. And obviously, like, I know I would never do those things, but you always try to kind of like compensate for that by being like, I'll show you what it's like to have a really good coach.
Or also, like, just because they become your friends as well, a lot of them. So when they do mess you out of hours, you're like, well, it's a friend messaging me, because they might not even be talking about anything bodybuilding related. They might just be letting you know something happened with their day, and you want to talk to them as a friend because you've got to know them.
Yeah, this is yeah. There's so many blurred lines, and I could easily count on probably two hands like the amount of clients I've got these days that have kind of crossed that line. And it does make it very, very difficult. I think it's just like a natural kind of thing. Like, you end up talking to your clients a lot. A lot of my clients, most of my clients are females, similar age to me. We've got similar interests, obviously. We end up chatting about things, like that aren't related to bodybuilding, and you do end up becoming friends with people. It's just, yeah. But I think it's then like the main thing I'm trying to get better at, really, I suppose, is like my days off, my day
Yeah.
off.
So you usually take a Sunday off, do you?
Yeah, so 1 p.m. on a Saturday is my cut-off point, and then Sundays. Obviously, if someone's If it's their show weekend, that's completely different. But that's generally the rule these days, is it's at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. And if you message after that time, which you're not meant to, but if you do, you now get responded to on a Monday morning. And I'm very strict with that. Like, I never used to be. I'd reply to them anyway and say, oh, I'll reply to this now, but just a reminder, these are my hours. Whereas now it's just, I'll leave it on, I mark it as unread, and it gets replied to on.
I need some tips to this though. So when you do stop your work at 1 o'clock on a Saturday, like, what do you do for the weekend? Because for me, because I have a full-time job,
I don't stop work, I just stop replying to people.
Okay, because for me, coaching is my like pastime, my hobby, because I love it. So at the weekends, I do all my coaching work, and I genuinely don't have a day off ever, which I'd love to, but then I also don't know what I would do with my day off.
Right, yeah, you see that. And this is something, when I had my big injury, obviously, that changed perspective massively for me, because, you know, this time last year, I was convinced I would never compete again. And it made me obviously kind of reflect a lot and change, you know, shifting my priorities, and like look at doing other things. Like, I can always find stuff to do now if it's not like that isn't bodybuilding related. Like, you know, this, like today, for example, I'm going to take my dog out and we're going to go for a drive out. We're going to find a really nice walk to do. Then I'll probably go to the farm shop to get a coffee. I like looking around the garden centre. I'm just old, basically. I love doing stuff like that. And that was one thing I kind of learned last year. I learned a lot about myself, like, right, when this is taken away from me, what is it when do I actually feel really good? And like, I feel kind of like at my best when I'm out in nature on my own. That just makes me so fucking happy. I love it. I could do it all day. I could be outside walking my dog all day with no one else, and I'd have had the best day ever.
Oh, that's really nice. But it's funny, it took you something like such a big injury to kind of take a step back and realize, okay, I need to live in alignment with myself now. How do I do that?
Yeah, and I'm still very strict with that now, like, because obviously my dog needs a lot of exercise because of the type of dog she is. So I have to go out. You know, it forces me to have that mental switch off, which I genuinely need. Like I said to you at the start, before we started recording, like, I'm not one of these people who buzzes off being busy. I'm not like a hyper productive person, but I'm very self-aware of that now. Like, I used to give myself a bit of a hard time for it. Like, why can't I handle, like, you know, the amount of stuff that other people can? Why do I not love being at social events all the time and buzz off all of this? And it's like, actually, okay, it's fine if I don't like doing that. That's just me. And, you know, I am an introvert, and because of that, I do find coaching very exhausting. And, you know, especially with the shows and, you know, having to communicate with people day to day, like, it is very exhausting for me. And I've just kind of got to a point where, like, I've accepted, like, you know, I might not be able to handle the amount of workload other coaches can. That's fine. That's just me. And there's no point in making myself absolutely miserable just for the sake of extra money, you know, because really I'm not a very like materialistic driven person. Like I said to you, like, my best day would just be out with my dog anyway. So I'm not going to kill myself for a few extra you know, a bit more kind of money. This is just, it's not going to make me any happier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just that sense of acceptance, isn't it? Because I used to compare myself to like other physique collective coaches and say, like, they have so many clients and they are doing so much of their coaching and they're always on the ball with Instagram and stuff like that. And I'm like, hang on 1 second. I'm also a scientist, and I always don't give myself the credit, the fact that I'm also a scientist. I'm like, okay, let's be realistic here and accept the fact that, okay, I am a full-time scientist. That is something that I want to do. I've chosen to do that for myself. So I'm not going to be able to spend 40 plus hours a week on content creation and Instagram reels and editing and coaching and all that stuff. I'll do my best with the free time I have. I'm going to coach the amount of clients I want to coach. But to me, I'd much more rather have a full-time job and also coach a small amount of clients, just to do it the way I love and not have to be overwhelmed with like hundreds, and just have that balance. But I've chosen that for myself, so I need to accept that and know that I'm not going to be like everyone else because I put myself in this position.
No, 100 million%. Yeah, it's fitness industry is like the worst industry for like toxic hustle culture. Like,
Yes. and
And
materialistic stuff and showing off and bragging and
yeah,
boasting, and it can make you
yeah,
feel really bad. Like I am a sucker for it. Like I will scroll on social media and see someone's got a new watch, someone has a new car, someone's taken on another 5 clients, and I really get down about it. But then you have to pull yourself back and be like, this is not real life. If I have a personal Instagram account and I go onto that sometimes and I realize what life really is and what people really value, because it's not all those flashy
yeah.
things.
Get so like it's such a bubble, and when you come out of that bubble, and I started to last year quite a bit when I was injured and things, it's like God, like there is so much more to life, and like like I said, it's just this constant pressure on socials. Like you've always got to be doing something, you've always got to be, you know, working harder than the other person, you've always got to be making more money, and it's just like I just don't. It's just not cool to me. Like I just got to a point where I'm just like, that's just, yeah, it doesn't impress me.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that just wants to earn enough of income to live my life how I want. Like I don't live super like flashy at all. And just be able to go on holiday with my friends once a year, twice a year, and be able to go to the events I want. That's literally it. So I don't need all these materialistic things. I don't think I have a single designer item in my repertoire. I just want to be able to do the things I want.
Yeah, yeah, literally exactly the same. It took me a while. It's only something I've recently, I say probably kind of like this last 6 months, and like it's like I've just stopped beating myself up about the fact that I don't like having loads on. You know, it's absolutely fine if I don't cope with that, then I don't cope well with it.
Yeah.
So fucking, you know what I mean? Like I don't have to make myself miserable just to have a certain amount of clients
Yeah.
or a certain money. Like I'm quite happy having, you know, a set number that I can manage, and then I've got the time to have that space I genuinely need, because I will get exhausted if I don't have that kind of like mental
Mm-hmm.
space and kind of like social kind of downtime. It's a very full-on job. Like if you're doing it properly, like it is a lot, because you have
Yeah.
people relying on
Yeah. It's draining.
yeah, I think that's, and like I said, that's why I've had to get a bit stricter with that sort of stuff, because it's like, you know what, I have my own problems in my life, I have my own stuff to deal with, I have my own mental load. I can't take on 30, 40 other people's problems as well, because
Yeah.
it sucks. Like it's stressful trying to do that. So yeah, that's a more kind of like recent thing, I guess, really, is just being self-aware and like understanding that, you know, you don't have to be like everyone else and get in this rat race. And you can't take on everyone else's problems when you've got your own shit
Yeah,
going on.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, you have recently transitioned into a prep.
Yes, I think I'm about 9 or 10 weeks in now. 10 weeks in, yeah.
Okay. So, when you started this diet, was it a prep from the beginning,
Yes, to me it was.
but
So
not to
yeah.
everyone else?
Yeah, like I just, you know what, I've never ever liked the whole social like prep. Like I've never done it. You know what, last prep, 2021, people knew I was prepping. It was obvious I was prepping, but I never put how many weeks out, I don't think, or what show, even though everyone fucking knew. But I just didn't like that additional pressure. But the preps before that, my first prep, I didn't have Instagram. My second prep, I had a private account. I never shared really anything on there. So that last season was the first time I'd kind of posted a bit of my prep. And this time I didn't really want to kind of say it at all, but then it just kind of got to the point where like it was just obvious, and I just thought, whatever. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
I don't like the pressure of it. I put so much pressure on myself. I don't want any additional pressure. But yeah, in my head, and obviously to my coach, it was like, yeah, we're starting to prep. Like we did like 3 months, 4 months, quite aggressive off season, off the bat of an accidental photo shoot diet, where I just like starved myself to death by accident because I was depressed at the end of last year. So we did like
Photos
quite
look great though, so that's all that matters.
I was shredding. I didn't even have to suffer once. Appetite non-existent. 4 months, kind of like, yeah, quite aggressive push up. Injury wise, was in a really good spot for the first time. So it was like, right, let's just fucking go. Let's hit legs 3 times a week. Let's add in. I added in assistance for the first time in an off season that I've never done before. So it was like, boom, like let's just fucking go for it. And then we went into a prep. We went into a prep a little bit earlier than I needed to, body comp wise, purely because I was getting a little bit slack. I said to Matt at the time, I was like, could we just start now? Because like, not because I need to drop body fat, just because I know I'll be on it.
You need
I
like
was
some structure to your
I
day
was
again.
getting a bit too pastry keen. Yeah, I was just like
How
becoming
many
like,
pastries are you having on a weekly basis?
I thought you were going to say daily. It was more daily.
A daily basis.
Yeah, like just got to the point where I was like, oh, like my appetite was so crap. So I was just like getting my food in how I could. And I just thought, you know what, let's just start prepping. I'll have to be on it. So yeah, so that was like 10 weeks ago. I think I'm about, I think I've stone down. Yeah, a stone down in 10 weeks. And it's been pretty straightforward, to be fair. Yeah, my back started playing up again about a month ago and I panicked. I thought, oh God, here we go. I'm gonna have to pull the plug already, but touch wood, it's good the last few
Oh,
weeks.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So how are you finding like are you feeling any pressure yet from social media now that you've announced it? Or are you okay so far?
I haven't put what show I'm doing. Anyone who asks me, obviously I'll tell them, like I'm not bothered. It's more just the public platform thing I don't like. Not really. I think because when I did say, obviously on socials, like I am planning on competing in, you know, I think it was like 16 weeks at the time. And I'd said like my reasons behind it and like the fact that it's going to be the first prep where like I don't feel the pressure, any pressure on placings or, you know, obviously any previous preps, it was I have to win. That's been my attitude. Like if I don't win, then I've lost basically. So that's the level of pressure I used to put on myself. Whereas this year, it's like, you know, I'm competing in the Pro League for the first time. I know, like I've not just fallen off a banana tree, that I'm not good enough to place at a pro show. So it's a case of I just want to come back from this injury, look the best I can possibly look, and actually enjoy a show without any pressure on placings. And actually hopefully enjoy the show for once because I've ruined them in times
It's
past.
so hard to be in the present moment at a show day when you're in your own head.
Well, honestly, like look back at all pretty much all the shows I've done, I'm just like, oh my God, you're just like, why are you so stressed? You don't see it, you know, at the time, like at all. And I don't this prep either. Like I look at myself and I just think you look shit. But I look back on like old show pictures and I'm like, why was I worried? Like,
Yeah,
it's just
I know.
mental. It's what your brain does to you. But you know, I'm not really feeling pressure. And as well, like the show's abroad, which is going to be perfect because I'm just going to know no one there. That's like
Yeah.
the perfect situation for me this year. It's just like,
Yeah, winning your pro card at the British finals is probably the worst place to win it in terms of like everyone who's anyone is going to be there watching you.
yeah, that was intense. And also it was the first show my parents had ever been to watch, ever.
Oh my God.
So they were watching me compete for the first time. And my ex, obviously at the time, his parents had come to watch as well. And they were meeting my parents for the first
Oh
time.
my God.
So I just like I was backstage, I like looked behind, like, you know, you can like look out into the audience and I seen like my mum and dad and my sister there with his parents in the audience, and I was like, oh,
Oh my God.
like,
Your heart is going a mile a minute, like Jesus.
thank God it went well. Oh my God, it would have been awful if it didn't.
Oh my God, the pressure of that.
Yeah, like to go from like that level of pressure, like I have to win my pro card today and my parents are here, to I don't give a fuck as long as I
I've
look the
heard
best.
really good experiences of people competing abroad because, as you said, like it's completely anonymous. No one knows who you are. Most people don't even speak English. Like you don't have to worry about social pressure. Like it's just like an even playing field for most people.
Yeah, yeah. And also the show I'm doing as well, which I think I should be doing this year, is it's a new show this year. So no one's ever done the show before either. So it was like quite an interesting experience, I think, actually, just to
Yeah,
see how busy it is, how it's run. So yeah, it's just a life experience that
yeah.
I wanted to experience before I properly retire. You know, I
So
want
is that the main goal of the prep? Just to stand on
to.
stage on a pro stage,
My goal this year is do a show, do a pro
just
show,
do a show.
do a show, and in addition to that, actually try and enjoy it.
Yeah. I think
Enjoy
that's gonna be the most important thing for you, just to remind yourself to be present, be in the moment, enjoy every
I'm
second.
nervous because I'm just such a nervous person on show
Yeah,
day. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, my goal is to not be nervous, like because that would just be insane. Like I'm going to be nervous, but hopefully just in a little bit more of a kind of positive way than times past, where it's, you
like an
know,
excited nervous rather than like holy shit, I'm gonna kill myself kind of nervous.
yeah, like can I just leave the venue right now? I
Yeah,
don't need to
let's go home.
yeah, like because that's what I'm like usually.
Yeah. And do you
So
have
yeah.
people coming with you to support, you know?
So at the moment, it's just Ella, who I do my podcast with.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming with me, although she's not actually got back to me since I've told her that we're actually going to a different country than I initially
Oh
thought
God,
we were going to.
hopefully she's okay with that.
But it's a massive financial saving, so I think
Yeah,
she'll be fine.
she'll be fine.
So yeah, at the moment it's just Ella coming out with me. I'm potentially thinking about taking someone out to film.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I've not kind of decided yet. I mean, obviously that's one, an additional expense, but two, it's like I don't know how I'm going to feel on those days running up. Like, will I just want some space? I
Yeah,
don't
if
know
you have a
yet.
camera in your face the whole time, it might not be that chilled.
So I might just kind of make Ella like vlog it for me on her phone or something.
I think like you actually be surprised how good the quality of an iPhone is when you want to. Like I've watched things and people are like, "Oh, I filmed this on my iPhone for YouTube," and you're like, "What?" Like if you use the cinematic mode, that's the hack. It makes such a difference.
Yeah, so at the moment, yeah, it's just us, and then hopefully stay out for. We're going to do a week in total, I think, at least. Stay out for a few days after, because it's my only chance at a bit of a holiday this year
Yeah,
because of client shows, and then I'm going to be moving house. So it's like, right, whilst I'm abroad, I may as well try and have a bit of downtime,
yeah, yeah,
eat nice food, and come home basically. So yeah.
yeah. So then, because you said that you kind of alluded to the fact that it's going to likely be your last prep. So what is the plan after that in terms of life goals, business goals, personal goals?
Yeah, well, I'm going to have quite a big change at the end of this year, probably with my house move. So I'm moving back up to where I'm from, which I can't wait for, to be honest. As much as I love living here, like, and I don't have any support network here, so
Yeah,
that'll be quite nice
it's
to be
very
living.
secluded to live there by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is lovely, but
I am such an introvert that living here on my own doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's more just a case of like having my dad there if something breaks,
yeah,
he's not 2 hours away, or like just being able to go out for a dog walk with my best mate, just like things like that. Just having like that support network, someone to watch my dog if I need to go out. I've just got no one here for backup on anything.
yeah,
So that'll be nice. But in terms of like bodybuilding wise, I think I'm just kind of going to be at a point where I'll quite easily be able to maintain, hopefully, like a nice kind of comfortable aesthetic year round. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But at the same time, like, I don't know how I'm going to feel after the show.
yeah,
I mean, I'm basing that decision mostly, to be honest, off the injury issues I've had.
mhm,
And I don't want to deal with the heartbreak of getting injured again.
yeah,
So it's like, because a few people said to me, like, oh, if you enjoy the show or it goes better than you think, will you do another one? I'm like, oh, I'd not even thought about that.
yeah. Let's just get through the first one first.
Like, I don't know, would I? I don't know. And like I said to yourself, like, I'm also very aware, like, I'm not, being completely honest, like, I'm not willing to put in, I think, what I need to put in to be like right at the top level. And I'm 30, and I appreciate a lot of the girls coming through the figure ranks are a lot younger. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to put that much into it to keep going and going and going
Yeah,
year after in the pro league, when realistically speaking, genetically and effort level wise, I'm probably not there. If I'm being
yeah.
honest.
And just the risks involved in being that competitive and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the figure girls are getting bigger and bigger. The drug use is obviously getting more and more like. Yeah, and as much as I don't want children, I also don't want to fuck myself up too much.
Yeah,
So, so
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's by the moment. Basically, it's just to see what happens after the show. But at the moment, I'm just thinking
Just get
going.
there first and then make decision after.
I think like the kind of body comp I'm in now for me is like probably like a relatively like I could probably maintain this pretty easily with like
Yeah,
plenty of flexibility on a weekend, especially these days because I've got my dog. Like, I am much more active than I used to be day to day, so my expenditure is naturally quite higher. And as long as I kept up my training and like some structure with my meals Monday to Friday, I think I'll be able to kind of maintain it. I think I'm a foodie though, so I don't.
yeah. That's what I always think. Like, I do think about my days when I do hang up the heels for the last time and how I want to look, how I want to feel, what kind of body I want to be in, and finding that kind of happy body where I think maybe you have this like body in the middle there, you maybe gain a couple of pounds over Christmas and drop a bit down over summer, but have this kind of weight range that you're happy to be around. And maybe if you do another photo shoot, you drop a few pounds, but it's never like massive push-ups or massive diets anymore, because that I'm just going to be sick of by then, I think.
What I think will be the hardest bit for me is like, this was kind of like the hardest thing I found when I thought I was retired last year, was accepting that I was not going to improve anymore. And like, that's what I think I find really difficult, is I'll always want to look better.
Yeah.
That's basically how I've done my whole like competing history, is like I've just bullied myself into looking better, because I've never been happy with what I looked like from a competitive standpoint. So it's like I've always just kind of like, in fact, I say to people all the time, I bullied myself into turning pro. Like that's how I improved season on season, was like, you're not fucking good enough, basically.
Yeah.
So I think coming out and just accepting like, right, like that's it, you're never going to look like that show I do in October or whatever, that's the best you'll ever look as a competitive bodybuilder. And I just don't know how I'll feel about letting that go, because I know when I had to let go last year of that look, obviously when I turned pro, in my head I was like, well, that's the best I'm ever going to have looked, that's it. And in my head I'm thinking, I know I could do more.
Yeah.
I could look even better than that. And it's like, oh, I think I'll just find that really hard to kind of.
It is hard.
Very. So yeah, it'll be interesting actually, kind of, to just kind of accept that that's the pinnacle of my physique progress. That's it, done.
I suppose you just need to realign with new progress goals, like new things you can get better at, so that you're not feeling I'm staying stagnant in all aspects of my life. Like you can kind of transition it to something else.
Yes, no, 100%. I think definitely like moving forwards, like business wise as well, I definitely want to do more kind of more posing stuff in terms of like routines and creation. Like I'm probably gonna, I've been so busy with posing recently outside of coaching, that I'm potentially going to move to client only posing quite soon.
Wow.
But with the exception of routine choreography, there's like one-offs.
That's cool.
So yeah, I'd quite like to push that kind of side of the business a little bit more, I think. Because I don't really feel like there's anyone in the industry at the moment, female wise, who's like
not really like
focusing on that.
Yeah, people do it, but it's more like a side to their main posing.
Yeah, whereas like I feel like there's maybe like a bit of a gap for be like, oh, you want a routine doing, you go to this person.
Yeah.
They do the best routines.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
So that's an idea I'm kind of toying
and then
with.
it will allow you to express yourself, because obviously in your figure category there's no expression. It's literally front, back and side, so that's it.
It sucks. Yeah, and like that's it. I've always loved doing routines, and of course I studied music at college and uni, and like I realized, oh, that's why I like it so much. Never even thought of it like that. I'm like, that's why I've never obviously done dance or anything before, but obviously like all my kind of like teenage years and even like childhood, like music was like a huge part of my life. So it ties in really nicely with what I actually studied at uni as well.
That's cool.
So it had its uses in some way, in one way or another, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. You always hear when someone is a posing coach that does stem from either a dance background or something like that. Yeah, or a creative background.
Yeah, I can't do a backflip. I can't do any of that.
I've never been good at gymnastics or any other sport for that matter. It's not been my thing. I did used to do Irish dancing. I don't know if that counts as dancing.
Oh my God. Can we kind of do some sort of like...
We can do a jig.
Can we do some sort of like hybrid with like a posing routine with like an Irish jig? That would be absolutely... I have like a little jig into my next routine.
I'll teach you how to do Irish dancing. I used to be quite good at it. Actually, I used to do like competitions and stuff with it.
Oh God, that's insane.
Yeah, I know. I stopped it when I was like 12. I didn't continue on it through school because I was studious and I didn't want anything to disrupt my studies because I was a nerd. So yeah.
Really well, yeah, we weren't anything alike.
That's the same as me. Like I auditioned for the Christchurch Cathedral Choir, which is like one of the biggest choirs in Ireland, and I got in. And the reason why I turned it down is that I could focus on the equivalent of my GCSEs, which are obviously just mean nothing. So I was like, no, I have to study. Sorry, mom, I'm not doing it. I was being all dramatic as a 15-year-old child.
I was the opposite of that. Like I was sent to private school, but I like literally like did my GCSEs. Like I just floated through school. I would say
Nice.
I was always the teacher was like, you could be so good if you actually tried. I was one of those.
Yeah. You're like,
Like,
sorry.
I got good grades, but I could have got like really good grades if I'd have
Yeah.
actually tried. But I was the rebellious child.
Yeah. Just breathe
Into,
through life.
into smoking and boys far too young, basically.
I wasn't fun enough for that. I wasn't into smoking or boys at all.
It was terrible.
I didn't do anything wrong. My brother and I were really well behaved. My brother a few years ago said to my mum, I wish we were worse behaved, to be honest. We weren't rebellious enough. Like, we regret that.
Yeah, that's true. Like I do have so many funny stories,
Yeah.
which are all coming out now on mine and Ella's podcast because we're doing like some
Of
hilarious.
course. Yeah, you spill the tea on that one, don't you?
Like yeah, like Ella's like she's like I feel so vanilla compared to you. I'm like yeah, I knew these stories would come in handy one day.
Oh God, that would be me as well. I'd be like, I cannot keep up with you.
Love it.
So do you want to tell people, promote yourself, where they can find you? You can just talk about the podcast.
I've got the new-ish Instagram handle is at bigsoph.ifbb pro. I also have a website, strongerwithsoph.com, where you can see all my client transformations. You can inquire through there. And coming soon, do a little bit of an ad. Coming soon is the merch as well, which I'm very excited about, which is mostly like, it's not really kind of like, it's not really like a business, like it's not a money making thing. It's more just like for my own marketing. But the garments are pretty cool. Beanies.
They look cool.
Like, yeah, acid wash t-shirts. So got that coming up soon. But yeah, you can inquire for pose intuition and coaching inquiries on my website, strongerwithsoph.com.
Perfect. Very good roundup. And yes, guys, if you tuned in and enjoyed it, we'd appreciate if you take a screenshot, share to your story and tag us. I'm at Holly_Physique Collective and we have at bigsoph.ifbb pro. I think that's right. And we would really appreciate it. But as always, any questions, any topics, any guests you'd like me to have on, please do reach out because I am very, very open to suggestions. And obviously this podcast is for you guys to listen to and enjoy. And that is pretty much it. Until next time, we will catch you soon.